everybody, Maureen Bonifin from Affinity Grant Insights, here to talk to you about grant consultancy today. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story of launching my business. So I've been thinking about being my own boss for a solid 10 years before I launched my business. During that time, I listened to a lot of podcasts, did a lot of professional development, talked to small business associations, and just learned what it was needed to become a business. And honestly, I was probably ready to launch my business many years before I did, but I was still being fulfilled at my job, still having a good time there. And finally decided after 10 years that I was in the right space to launch. Now, about a year before I launched, I started actively thinking about how I was going to do this. So what that meant was talking to a lot of people, figuring out if people were interested in this, putting my name out there, not necessarily saying I was going to do this, but just saying, hey, I'm an expert in this area. What do you think? And so that meant going to conferences, that meant doing one-on-one calls with people. And I realized by about December of that year that yes, I really wanted to do this. I needed to do this. And in April of the following year, I established my LLC. And then in May, I gave my notice. And about the same time, my boss at the time also gave her notice that she was retiring. And I knew that was coming, but I didn't realize it was coming as quick as it was. And so we had both planned to leave about the same time, but unfortunately, we needed to hire somebody in to replace both myself and somebody else who was leaving. And so I stayed on for another 3 months to onboard and train that person. And I stayed on at half-time. And that honestly was a bit of a blessing because during that half-time phase, I was able to build up my website, build on the back-end pieces of the business, start working as a subcontractor under somebody else, which is a whole nother story for a whole nother day, and start putting out those feelers saying, I'm going to do this, especially near those last couple weeks. And then I launched. And honestly, I was only down time for about a week before I had a couple people contacting me saying, yes, I'd love to work with you. One was a woman who wanted me to work with her faculty. She loved supporting women-owned businesses. And while she didn't have any projects at the time, she wanted to get me on contract. So I got on contract, got a project with them in the spring. And the second was a $160 million engine that was sent my way by a fellow consultant who was starting to retire. And lo and behold, that engine was funded, and that was how I became known in this space. So if you have any thoughts, please drop them below.